From the Department of Communication in Phillipsburg, this is a special edition of Inside Government with Charity Dunker.
Hello and welcome. This is part 2 of our interview here with KPSM officers, Officer Richards and also Officer Josepha, community police officers, and also very, very much, when we say involved with the community, are these two gentlemen.
Yes.
All right. Last time when you visited our studio, we talked a lot about the school situation on the island. And I think we're going to take it off where we left off. Let's start off there. Right, officers?
Sure.
The communication between you and the various schools here on St. Martin, what is that like?
Well, Charity, I can tell you the relationship between the police force and the schools are great. It took some time for us to get there, but that trust, that working relationship, that harmony, it's there now. And I can even tell you that we play a very small role in education in the schools, where we go in and we give information and presentation of matters of concern to bring awareness to these kids. We even have programs where we have the cops and kids. That's from the elementary school and teens and
Police services.
Yeah.
Yep. That's in the secondary school. And these are programs that we run yearly.
Mm-hmm. Now, you started off early in the elementary school.
Yes.
Psychologically, makes total sense. Now, as for the high schools, how often do you visit the high schools and also offer those same services?
The high schools, usually we get requests to do especially if they have projects.
Yes.
They would bring us in and we'll do like a presentation on that topic for them. And we even involve where make it competitive among the different schools or classes. That also brings us close to those students. That stigma of not being friends of the police, we try to kill that, and
Right.
It takes a little time, because of past experiences probably, but I can truly say that it's now becoming better.
Let's talk about the program that we run, and part of the year plan of the organization is bringing the police closer to the community, starting with the kids. I'm talking about this year, most likely we're going to go back to the Cops and Kids program that was totally written by St. Martin, and it's been used by certain organizations outside of St. Martin also. In the sense of, it's a year program whereby the schools, we go into the schools, first thing they're allowed to do, ask any question they want.
Okay.
And you get the most funniest questions.
I want to know what are the questions. Yeah.
Why do you wear that color uniform? Mm-hmm. Why do police even come by my house? Mm-hmm. Why did they pick up my parents who were here illegal? And these are straightforward questions.
Yes.
And tough questions. You don't understand. They're tough questions, but you have to answer and be fair. We are smart enough to, like you said, we are prepared. We ask for the questions in advance. We get a box.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're allowed to ask.
Yeah.
The good thing about it is you don't know who it is. It's anonym. They put the names in a box and they ask the questions.
Mm-hmm.
That gives them the courage also to go ahead and ask.
Yeah.
As time goes, we compete against each other, schools, you name it. And it brings knowledge of who is who from the other schools, and also brings a weird dynamic that we police officers didn't understand. 5 years later, after Cops and Kids in the 6th grade, a student came out, Justice Student of the Year for the police.
Correct.
That same student sat next to the Chief of Police. Mm-hmm. When she saw me, she said, "Mr. Josepha." I said, "Okay."
Yeah.
Can you remember the face? She said, "Yes, but you were by Cops and Kids a couple of years ago." And then you understand how influential these things are in the public. You take it for granted, but they do not forget.
You're talking about forget, even on the weekends.
Yeah.
In the grocery shop, Officer Felix or Officer, and you're like, which school again? Because you can't remember. But it's like, which school again? And it's like, you came to my school.
I must commend KPSM on breaking the stigma. Because I can remember, if I'll just share a little bit. As a child coming up, you hear the police is coming, and it was fair, you know? So I'm happy that that has turned and the stigma has been broken.
I'm going even a step further. I still hear parents now telling them, listen, if you don't behave yourself, I'm calling the police for you.
What do you think about that? How
I
do you
told
feel?
her, hello. I said, wait. If you come with him by the police, me and the police going to talk to him about you because you're the parents who have to manage your child.
Very good. Yeah.
I jump in one time on that. I discouraged that one time
Discouraged that.
because
Yeah.
you're creating the perception
Fear.
that it's not, and fear also that it's not good at all.
Officers, we're in that season.
Oh, don't
We
remind
know
me.
what time of year it is.
Oh yeah.
Okay?
Oh, yeah.
We start from June and we hope for it to be over without any kind of fatalities, casualties, anything. We know what happens as well when when we have a situation of a curfew. People are domesticated. Some people have a lot of problems already. We're talking about hurricane season.
Hurricane season.
What is that like for you at that time of year?
You know, psychologically, for some of us, it is rough. Put in the back of your head, you are living with a police officer who during this time of fear has to leave you and your kids alone and go to work, leaving you through this hurricane season. So we tend to forget that this also has influence on the person who also protects and serves.
Yeah.
But again, come to the main issue of hurricane season. What the police did different from since the last hurricane, we have learned to plan, and a plan strategically from the beginning. There is a group we call SKBO, strategic group, that just before any storm comes, we come together as a group. Myself as head of the communication, Mr. Richards is also part of that group.
Yes.
And strategically we decide from in advance what are the plans. We got our own complete books, what if this happens, how is going to be our actions. We are for sure up to date. And again, hat off to the Chief of Police for pushing this into KPSM for sure.
Now we mentioned about on your side, on the officer side, getting the community prepared and ready for such events of a hurricane. How do you go about that?
Let's talk about from the department point of view in preparedness and trying to prepare the community by giving information. DCOM is the main government voice, but in small, the police communication department also assists in be aware of this, the security aspects of what you can do and you should do during this period of the hurricane season and the storms that can be coming our direction. Safety is also your own concern.
You know, I want to also emphasize that this last, I want to say, exercise.
Yeah, it was.
Because it helps us also to see where improvements is needed. I must commend the public on their behavior at this time. We got full cooperation from them, and they adhere to all of the information that was given. So thumbs up to the public. That makes our job a lot more easier.
Yeah.
You know, we can focus on more other safety issues than have to worry about the folks being on the road and then trying to save them and then still have to deal with the other issue. Teamwork.
I totally agree. This was one of the easiest part when it comes to the public during this past storm. Whereby we got total cooperation.
Yep.
No headaches with the public.
We're talking about the approach of Fiona that
correct.
we escaped.
Yep, that we escaped.
Yeah.
That is
But in
correct.
preparation for Fiona, we got a lot of cooperation that we didn't even expect it.
Yeah.
It was a lot easier doing the other small things.
On the topic of experiences, stay tuned. Officer Richards and also Officer Josepha, we're going to touch base more and talk about their experiences during pandemic as well. I think that should be an interesting one. Do stay tuned. This is Inside Government Interview. Again, I'm your host, Charity Dunker. I'll be back right after this.
It's hurricane season. Are you prepared? Here are a few tips to remember to help keep you and your family safe. Hurricane winds can cause trees and branches to fall. So before a hurricane strikes, trim or remove damaged trees and limbs to keep you and your property safe. This hurricane season, secure loose rain gutters and downspouts and clear any clogged areas or debris to prevent water damage to your property. This public service announcement was brought to you by the government of St. Martin.
Right before the break, we were on talks of the experiences during hurricane season and how they go about preparing, not only for the officers, but also for the general public. Now we're going to move on to their experience during the pandemic. Officers, Officer Richards and also Officer Josepha, what was your experience like? And let's just say rescues, if you had to do anything or such, or also escorting, because we had a situation with borders being closed.
Let's start with the most complicated one, which was borders being closed. During that time, the Prime Minister and the Chief of Police had authorization of leaving persons cross the border to the Dutch side or to the French side, and they prefer on the other side. For a small department, this was one of the most complicated structural way of doing business ever. Every person needed a document to travel from the French side to the Dutch side, whereby the chief had to sign as permission, or the Prime Minister. My department, who was one of those who was coordinating this, I think that was one of the most difficult parts for the communication department in my couple of years in this office. Mm-hmm. You get 1,000 mails, and everyone wants their authorization now, because they needs to go to work or they needs to go check on their business. The experience for my office was, including for the chief, was a nightmare. I think we don't really want to tread on again ever. It made our life complicated. Mm-hmm. The question was this really a task for the police? And that was my ultimate question when we reviewed this.
Yeah.
And besides that, Charity, it was something totally new to us.
Totally new.
So you can only imagine the planning and then the bottlenecks, the kink in the chain, and review and how do we approach. But it was an experience that we'll never forget. And it only helped us to use the resources that we had effectively and in the best way possible. And at the end of the day, the public was not, this is not something new or something old, something totally new to the public as well. So they're getting adjusted to it as well was also a challenge. And we had to understand as well in that.
Mm-hmm. You had to understand that part of the vaccines who were here, there was a whole planning for the police just to bring the vaccine from away to the airport, from the airport to a particular storage location mm-hmm. with security that the police have to be taking care of. Logistics, and that was also a headache. Yeah. And with a small force and taking out that manpower, in that period, it was one of the complicated times the police ever had. Mm-hmm. Before we running behind criminals.
Yeah.
But we did it.
You did that as well.
Yeah.
We did.
We had no choice.
We had no choice.
Mm-hmm. And this happened during curfew time?
Even during curfew. It was complicated during the curfew time. Trying to tell a person who has to go to work by a particular hotel that he cannot cross the border was one of the most complicated things we ever had to do. Mm-hmm. Some persons was sick on the French side in the hospital. They live on the Dutch side. How do you tell a person who needs to go get to his house he can't go? Mm-hmm. And those were the struggles the police was also dealing with as an organization.
All right. Crime. Let's go and deal with the daily, because I don't think it stops.
Oh.
You ever get a holiday?
I wish it did.
No, right? No. All right. Now, ways and means by which the general public can protect themselves. Give us some tips and some pointers. And you work in close-knit with Open Bad Ministeri, so I'm sure there are tips that you can share with us. All right.
Okay, I would suggest, in particular, in which aspect of crime that you're talking about. If I'm talking about my home, that is something that the community officers also can assist in. We can come to your home and do an assessment, give you some pointers as how to
better secure your space.
And we're also specialists in crime prevention through environmental design, where A lot of times you have folks that have a lot of flowers and trees in their yard because it's nice, it's beautiful. But you're actually creating an environment where criminals can capitalize on, because you can block the entrance of your window, your door, block the view of your windows, and it's just a matter of the guy hiding there while you're leaving, which gives him all the time to have access to your house. So we give those pointers, and we even do those things in town hall meetings, for example. If we're bringing some awareness to that district, let's say crime has increased in that district, we call for this town hall meeting and we let that district know how safe your community is, and we point out these pointers to them.
Officer,
Let me narrow it down to a little bit. My department mostly speaks about particular criminal offenses that happen regularly on St. Martin. And I always come back to one of the main ones, which is car theft. Car theft is an ongoing business. I'm saying it again, it's a business. Cars are being stolen on both sides of the island and VIN numbers being changed, documentation being changed, and being sold. Literally being sold.
Yeah.
Okay. My prevention tips most of the times begins with, be careful what you buy. And if you don't take time and investigate what you're buying, intend to be arrested and get that good that you bought confiscated from you with a chance of not getting it back. Again.
When you say this,
Let me explain.
yeah, specify.
Mr. Richards saw a nice Toyota Corolla 2018 for sale online. Specifically online. Oh, nice price, $4,000-$5,000. Okay. I called. Let's make a deal. The deal is made. A handwritten bill of sale is done. Mr. Richards said, thank you. Step in his car, drives, stopped by the police. We run the VIN number. Car is stolen. I'm going to leave Mr. Richards explain what's going to happen.
Well, more than likely, once that shows up, you will be arrested and processed. Yes. You know, I think what Mr. Josepha was trying to get at, you need to know what it is you're getting yourself into.
Yeah.
If I'm buying a vehicle from someone, I should at least have the documents from the previous owner.
Yes.
Stating that, that this car is in good standing. Sometimes that some things that come so sweet and easily at times, it's worthwhile looking deeper into to avoid these kind of situations.
Both of us are acting prosecutors, and fencing is what we not arrest, mostly put people in jail for most of the times, and sometimes even not knowing their own fault, not taking care of finding out exactly what they got themselves into. You cannot explain to me that you bought a vehicle in good faith. Let's start always in good faith, without not knowing who the original owner was, without asking for a view of the insurance, the inspection card. You have to ask a little bit more. A second-hand vehicle, in particular for certain types of vehicle, you should do the investigation into, or you're going to end up being arrested with a chance of being prosecuted, and most of all, losing the vehicle and the money you spent.
Yep.
So you're being punished 2 or 3 times.
All right. So research, ask your questions. You heard it from the officers, Officer Josepha and also Officer Richards. Do stay tuned. I'm going to take that break. When I get back in, we'll talk about the various areas of crime, speeding, let's just say different fights, domestic violence. We'll get into that. Just stay tuned. Once again, this is Inside Government Interview, being joined by officers from the KPSM. I'll be back right after.
Do you know there is such a thing as teen dating violence? Seriously, there is. When your boyfriend or girlfriend is controlling your every move, trolling you online, checking your social media page, recording you without your permission, or forcing you to do things you don't want to do, this is abuse. If you find yourself in this situation, please talk to someone you can trust. your parents, school counselor, or the police.
This message has been brought to you by Women's Desk.
Welcome back on this special edition of Inside Government Interview with Officer Josepha and also Officer Richards. Let's head into where I said we were going to take it from when we return. Reckless driving. I said speeding, but let's go with reckless driving on the island. How do you tackle this? I know it's a constant issue.
Let's start with reckless driving. What we could consider as reckless driving? One of the main things we see is the scooter guys driving through traffic, hopping, cars them who are doing these circles, making eights.
Drifting.
The public road, and for sure on St. Martin, infrastructure was never meant for this. Let's begin there. Police activities to curb this. Over the last couple of weeks, there is a team working, and they have a double role instead. One part of it is at the schools for prevention causes, and to tackle the issue of armed robberies was one, and dealing with I would consider sometimes the crazy riders and drivers. We tend to forget that you're not alone on the road. Your bad habits could cost someone else's their life. And sorry doesn't bring back no one. Be aware, you are not the only person on the road. The police is not going to chase you, because for these small matters, the chances of you injuring yourself would get the police officers also in trouble. What we do now is, in coordinating strategic locations, we do controls. We control everything on the vehicle, documentation, and are you doing on the technical issues of the vehicle. Let's come back to one of the main discussions that we're having, and it has to do with tint. There is a tint law on St. Martin, and they're talking about where you're allowed to have tint. On the back windows, there's a certain amount.
What's the percentage?
Let's talk about the front windows. The front windows is, and I'm talking about the windows of the driver and the passenger side. They're talking about, I think, 70%.
Light transparency.
Light transparency. People, every vehicle that is imported comes at 70%. Again, every vehicle that is brought into St. Martin are 70%. There is legally no vehicle that can be brought, again, I'm talking for the Dutch side, that can be brought in with anything with glass less tinted than that amount. In the back, they're talking mostly about 30 and 33%, but that's in the back of the vehicle, and on the front of the glass, about 10 centimeters. The discussion is always with, but yeah, I could see through the car. Yeah, but the tent is to protect my seats and my vehicle. I do understand, because as a person, I too would like to have tint on my vehicle. But as a law-abiding citizen and a police officer, I do not. And my family don't either. I'm going to explain the reason why that some people doesn't understand. In the evening, that same 40-30% that you have in the front of your car, when the police stopped you, you can be seen. And again, it's at the moment, it's his life is also, he don't know who's in the car, and his life is also on the line. He has to protect himself. He can't see who's in the car. We get the urge sometimes, and some young officers, I tell them, it's not necessary. The first thing they do, they want to, because they can't see in the car, they pull the gun and say before they move towards the car. Something that I do not recommend. But I do understand their fear sometimes. And this is part of it that the public doesn't understand. And the day is all nice and well. Car is stopped in the evening. one of these days, when one of these officers get hurt, I want the public to explain to the family how we're going to go about it.
Charity, to go back to the part where the reckless behaviors on the road, I want to encourage the public. They could make this known to us as well by providing information.
Yes.
A lot of times we use our devices for messages, whatnot. You can share that information with us too. We even on our webpage, we have a saying, see something, report it as well. And you're helping us to also combat these crimes because we can't do it alone. And we need each other in this small society in order to do that.
Yeah.
And the request also goes out to my colleagues, police officers and the gendarmes on the French side. Working together is the only way we could get this problem solved. Individually as a group, they know most of these road ragers knows that they could use us against each other. Sooner or later, we have to work together to get this problem solved. Can't do it alone.
New recruits, new officers.
Yes.
You're excited about that, having new brothers and sisters on the force.
Yes.
How many new recruits are there in the various areas in which they're going to be fulfilling these job openings?
Hold on. There's a new class that's busy now. Let me step back. Over the last 5 to 6 years, the main drive of the community of St. Martin and the police in particular is to get most of the officers on the road. So there was about 3 or 4 classes that are now finished from BPO 3. Now we are BPO 5, if I'm not wrong.
Correct.
BPO 5 is busy now in training. I think they have less than a year more to go. And the 16 of them, if I'm not wrong, will also be taken into the service over the next year. We're not so far yet with the finances of BPO 6, but I heard the chief of police said, hey, communication department, remember, sooner or later we'll be back on the recruitment drive again.
Yeah.
And when we take an analysis about 10 years ago of the age of the police, we came out in the mid-30s, close to 40. I mean, your police force was kind of on the gray side, as we would say. So the new recruits is totally something, new blood, new ideas, is something totally that we need.
Okay.
Yep.
Officer Richards? Okay. Before you leave us, any closing words? I mean, to the parents, especially since you touched base with them in particular, dealing with school issues. Let's use that as our wrap-up as we end this interview.
Parents, I know some of you try your best outside, and I'm not here to bash any parent, but I want to encourage you, continue talking, continue encouraging, continue getting involved in your kid's life. That's the only way we can fight this together. We will play our role. We will support and enhance whatever is needed in order to make this a reality. And I'm more than 100% sure that the school are playing their part as well. They said it took a village to raise a child. We're living in a modern time. We can do it in a modern style.
A community future is based on the ideas and the qualities of their future leaders and students. If you don't help them now, expect the unexpected in the future.
All right. Radio listeners and TV viewers, you heard it from both officers from KPSM, Officer Richards and also Officer Josepha. Once again, this was part 2 of our discussion on crime and different issues here on St. Martin. Both officers, I'd like to thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Yes, and you're always welcome. To our radio listeners and television viewers, thank you very much as well for tuning in and being a part of this edition of Inside Government Interview. If you have missed this broadcast, be sure to log on to the official government's website at stmartingov.org for video on demand and also for rebroadcast. Tune into St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM. On behalf of our team at the Department of Communication, I'm Charity Dunker. Thank you very much for tuning in.